And so this chapter of Drag Race was unlike any other, with the most trans-identifying contestants, a life-saving candy bar, and the first ever top 5. Bosco, you are at the intersection of so many firsts. Why did you initially decide to join Drag Race, and what did it mean to you to get not only one shot but 2 shots at the crown?
I initially decided to join Drag Race because I am very poor and it seemed like a good way to make money. No, Drag Race is kind of like the proving grounds for like people who do drag. Like we all like have risen to the top of like our local scenes in one way or another, and Drag Race allows you the platform to like see how that measures up against everybody, see how that measures up against like the legends and icons that have already done it, and then like joking aside, for real, the money. Like, all of them came right out of, like, hella lockdowns. Like, when I had gotten on the show, I think it was the first time in a year and a half that I've been able to do regular drag. So, to have the platform, to have the money, to have the opportunity, and to be given a second chance was insane. I really didn't see that for myself, but I'm so happy that I got it.
Yeah, that moment was definitely such an interesting thing to watch. I think everybody kind of reacted in the same way. Willow, you are also part of this historic time for the Drag Race franchise. This season, you've had such a fun, but also beautiful journey through your humor, the looks that you pulled off, and also, of course, you coming out as trans. What was it about being on Drag Race that helped you find the truth in your gender identity?
I really don't think that had I not done this experience, that I would be where I'm at with my gender identity. Having so many other girls on the cast, they're sharing their stories, and, talking, whether it's backstage or a phone call, or whatever it is, to kind of coach me through some of this process has been absolutely priceless. And just when you're together with your people constantly, it kind of just rubs off on you and you realize, what's kind of going on behind the brain. So a lot of that journey I have to attribute to this experience.
And I think you previously said, too, that Drag Race was kind of the first time, with the pandemic where you really got to embody Willow, and that helped you with this journey.
Yeah, exactly. Because of the pandemic, I hadn't been in drag in, about 15 months. That was my first dip back into drag. And then I was like, why am I so happy all the time getting to be in drag? And I was like, oh, okay, so then I'll just go.
And so Drag Race continues to be this platform of self-discovery, whether that is, with the identities you come into or the abilities you gain. Angeria, you came into the show a very polished pageant queen, but we also saw you rap, act, dance, and so much more during the season. What else did you learn about your drag style from your time on the show, and did you pick up any new skills?
I actually picked up a lot of new skills. There were so many things like throughout the season that I had just never done before. Like I had never done any kind of like stand-up comedy or any kind of acting, not too much dancing. Like there were so many things that were first for me, and I just kind of like threw myself into it, and I was like, oh, I do know how to do that. So I think I learned more than anything to not like doubt myself. Like even though I haven't like done something before, that doesn't mean that I can't do it.
Right, and I think we definitely saw that with the catwalk video. I think as what Michelle said, you might not have known the choreography, but you sold it, and I think that is something that continued throughout this season. And so to the other half of Camgeria, Lady Camden, of course it wouldn't be RuPaul's Drag Race without a Rusical. You stole the spotlight with Moulin Rouge in a role that you didn't initially see yourself succeeding with, or in a role that you didn't initially want. First of all, thank you, Bosco, for that. How did that win? How did that win validate, your capabilities as a drag artist? And I think, in the episode before the reunion, you talk about that just you wait moment. How did that challenge also help you reach that moment?
I think going into the competition, I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. Like, you sort of go, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to give. You kind of pigeonhole yourself without even realizing it. And I think that I was just like, I just had my mind set on something, and I wasn't like opening up my mind to the possibility of like just fitting into whatever box that you're in, kind of thing. And so there was like a nice reminder of like, it's really not about, what you're given, it's just what you do with it, and it's your sort of attitude. And I had such a crappy attitude going into it at first, and I think I needed to have that moment to kind of reset and be like, listen, not everything's always going to go your way. In fact, it's never going to go your way in this competition. So you have to bounce and shapeshift. And I think that once I kind of let go of like whatever expectations I had, I think I just felt a little bit freer. And maybe that's where the whole just UA came from. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I think what's so fun about this journey is that no matter how long you are on the show, you really see yourselves evolve and take on so many different challenges and forms of your performance. So Kornbread, first of all, congratulations on winning this congeniality for this season. I'm sure that's incredibly exciting.
It is. Thank you.
You exited this series a little bit earlier than expected because of an injury, and I hope you're recovering well. But the time that you had was so sweet and very impactful. How does it feel to be celebrated for the kindness and the positivity you shared in the workroom, despite your short journey?
It's great because obviously, like, it's voted amongst your peers, and a lot of people go, "Oh, you go around saying sweet, nice things to them," and that's not true. I actually give them like a lot of tough love. I talk a lot of crap to them, and so the more crap I talk to them, they take it as motivation. But it's just me just running my mouth. But it's great to see that they, like, take my side of how I am as a person, and they embrace it. A lot of them didn't know when we walked into the workroom, quarantine period or whatever. Before we got picked up, I think an hour before we got picked up, I found that one of my best friends passed away. And when you go to Drag Race, you have to turn your phone off and like put everything away. So that all happened so fast. It was, I'm about to go live out my dream. At the same time, I'm also mourning the loss of one of my friends, and we're in quarantine by ourselves. So I had to do that entire quarantine situation by myself, and I had to work through a lot of that. I was going into the competition initially like, headstrong. It's about me, screw the rest of everybody else. And I think that whole moment and all of that happening, not necessarily humbled me because I'm a very humble person, but it just made me rethink my journey there. And I knew I was going to have to depend on the relationships there in order to uplift me. And I think me uplifting them and their heads like, oh, she's like motivating us. But really, it was me getting the love back from them that kind of carried me through where my ankles are stiff. But other than that, yeah. So I think it's great hearing back from everybody and them understanding me as a person, because it takes a lot to understand Kornbread Girl. It's a lot that comes with all of this.
Well, we're so happy with the sample that we got with RuPaul's Drag Race. And going back to Bosco, I think all of you knew about Drag Race in some capacity before joining the show. How does your experience now as a contestant and somebody who's gone through the journey and the process match up with maybe the very first impression you had with the series?
Seeing behind like the curtain of Drag Race is really, really interesting. Like, there's a lot of things that you do expect to happen. Like, you expect to be like slightly overwhelmed. You expect to be like emotional. You expect to be challenged in ways that you've never been challenged before. But I think one thing that I wasn't completely ready or expecting is just how television works. Because drag is like usually like a 4-hour sport at home. And on television, we're asked to do it for like 12 to like 16 hours. And there is definitely a life expectancy for how long my face looks nice in makeup. So it was just a little jarring to experience TV production and drag competition at the same time.
And so, Angeria, I'd like to pass that question on to you. Talk to me a little bit about how your experience as a contestant matches up with your very first impressions of the show.
Well, because I've been watching the show for like a very long time, like since like the first season. So I think like when you watch it, and you see like you kind of see all the drama and stuff that goes within it. I think the biggest thing for me is I got really close to them, and they were really nice, And that's not something that I had like, thought would happen, like going into it. So yeah, that was probably like the one thing about like, when you watch it, like on TV, and then you see like, everybody with drama and the edits and all of that kind of stuff, and then you see, oh, we all still can like get along and stuff like that, but still maintain drama when we need to.
Definitely. And that is something that I think makes this season so incredibly warm, is the camaraderie. And again, the support that we see among the queens. Again, as contestants who have gone through the whole application process, the audition process, sending in your self-tapes, what do you think continues to attract drag artists to this platform? Willow, I'd love to have you answer that one.
I think, like Bosco was saying earlier, it's kind of a way for you to be like, okay, can I really do this? Like, am I really, can I bite as loud as I bark? And it's just like the ultimate challenge for yourself as an artist. Now, it's not the only measure of your drag as an artist, because it's has a lot of bells and whistles behind it. But it's, a once-in-a-lifetime experience that is also very elusive and secretive. So you just want to know what it's like. And I remember I tried out 3 times. This was my 3rd time. And I was like, oh, I cannot end my drag career without being on Drag Race.
Was that a similar, maybe, perspective that you had, Lady Camden and Kornbread? Was Drag Race something you knew that you had to get into, just to even further your drag careers? Because you guys are already established in your own respects.
For me, it's a yes and no. I told myself I'm going to audition for season 14 and season 14 only. It was going to be one thing. So I was going to do this season. If I don't get on this season, then I'm going to take another route. I was doing a lot of stuff before getting on the show. And like I had a different mindset where I wanted to go with Kornbread and just myself as a character. But baby, I was like, listen, all the stuff they asked for in that audition process, honey, y'all got one round up out of me before it would have been a chop. So 14 happened. I'm like, okay, good. It all lined up. But if it wouldn't have happened this time, girl, that would have been it.
And Lady Camden, what about for you? Was Drag Race something you felt like you needed to be a part of in order, to continue spreading your influence as a drag artist?
I mean, I started doing drag after watching the show, right? So I'm definitely a Drag Race baby. I think a lot of people are these days, just because it has been going on for 113 years. But at the same time, of course I was I really, deep down, it would be my absolute dream to go on the show. I would be devastated if I never make it. Having said that, it's important to note that there's so many incredible drag queens out there that are real legends, genuine drag legends that have never been on the show and have no aspiration to be on the show. And it's not because they don't like it, they're just busy. They're doing their thing, they're having careers. And so I think it's important for people that maybe never make it on the show to know that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be a legend one day.
Mm-hmm. Well, you guys, I'm so grateful that you made it onto season 14. You guys are all legends to me. Thank you all so much for joining me to talk about this season. Angeria, Bosco, Kornbread, Lady Camden, and Willow Pill. It was such a pleasure. I couldn't ask for a better group of queens to chat with.
Sweet. Thank